Okay, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Leadupteach on air with myself, Elizabeth Bostwick, and my co-host, Heidi Veal. I'm a fourth grade teacher in the Finger Lakes region of New York, and I'm passionate about leadership, PBL, makerspace, and ed tech to enhance learning. Tonight in episode 15 of Leadupteach, we're excited to welcome the fabulous Lisa Dabbs. Lisa is dedicated to new teacher support and is the hashtag NTChat founder and podcaster. Lisa is also the author of Stand in the Gap, a consultant, speaker, blogger, and adjunct at the University of Laverne. Before we get started, Heidi, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Heidi Veal, and I'm an assistant principal at a bilingual early childhood school in North Texas. And I've been an educator for over 16 years. I'm passionate about new teachers and mentorship, and just thrilled tonight, Lisa, to learn from you on Leadupteach. I myself, along with Liz and Laura, co-founded Leadupteach, and we are so honored that we have the opportunity to meet and interview and talk with special people like yourself through this.
Oh, well, thank you so much. As I said earlier, I'm really honored to be here with all of you.
Well, we are too. Lisa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, all right, I will. Thank you, both of you. As most of you know, my name is Lisa Dabbs, and if you don't know me, I'm happy to make the connection with all of you tonight and then going forward. I'm a former school principal, a former actually elementary school teacher, and Heidi, a former preschool teacher as well. So I made a transition about 8 years ago to become an education consultant, first working with Kaplan Educational Corporation, and then I took off on my own. And I really felt that it was important in all the years that I spent as a principal that I decide where my passion was going to be since I left the school building. And it didn't take me too long to figure out that I wanted it to be in the area of support to new and pre-service teachers because of the fact that I had hired so many new teachers in my 19-year career. So when I began to jump on social media spaces and began to connect with folks there, educators there, and everybody probably shares this so many times, I connected with Shelly Terrell, and I connected with EdChat, and as I connected with her, I said, wow, this chat is huge. Is there a chat for new teachers? And so part of my bio and part of my passion was our story that she and I have together where she said, no, there isn't a chat for new teachers. So I developed that chat, as you shared, New Teacher Chat. And so I've been doing that now for 6.5 years, and it really is in alignment, ladies, with what I believe is needed for new teachers is a mentoring space, right? And in this case, a mentoring space on Twitter. So that's a little bit about me. I also come from a family of educators, and really lastly, I dedicate most of the work that I do to my grandma, who really paved the way as an adjunct professor, as I am as well, and a teacher and a speaker of 5 languages. And watching what she did as a little girl growing up, she's really my inspiration for what I do.
That's awesome. So welcome, Lisa, and we can't wait to hear even more as we go through this interview. And we also want to give a special welcome to our Leadupteach audience here on YouTube and also out on Twitter. Laura Gilchrist is facilitating a Twitter chat concurrently with tonight's Leadupteach episode, and we may give a special shout out to Laura. We invite everyone to use the hashtag of Leadupteach to connect and participate both during and after the conversation.
Tonight on this exciting 15th episode of Leadupteach, we're going to hear all about Lisa's mission to support and empower new teachers. So here we go.
So to get us started, Lisa, share with us about your journey that led you to be the inspiring educator that you are today.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. I would say that even from the time that I was a preschool teacher, I always had this inner joy, right? This joy of learning, joy of living. And I would always laugh a lot. And, as a very young, preschool teacher. And I remember that I would always have older teachers, like who are my age now, looking at me like, what's the matter with her? She's always happy and she's always bubbly. And, I carried that forward into my work. And I remember there was a certain time where I decided that I wanted to do more. I wanted to have a broader view and be able to give more to the education world that stretched beyond my classroom. And I remember telling my family that I wanted to become a school principal. Now, my uncle was a principal, And my dad was a principal. And so when I shared with my dad that I want to be a principal, he's like, oh, you know, women just aren't principals. And I'm like, well, excuse me, I'm going to become one. so, you know, as I did that, ladies, and as I became a school principal, I was still bubbly, laughing, joyful. And it was really like this big dichotomy that people would tell me, oh, nobody's going to follow you. You laugh too much. You know, you chuckle too much. You're just too happy and joyful. And, you know, principals are serious. And what I began to see is that there needs to be, ladies, more joy and more laughter and more soul in what we do. Mm-hmm. And so in my work as a principal, that's what I tried to do. I tried to be that joyous, soulful leader. Now, some were able to embrace it and others were not. You know, people tend to like to be told what to do rather than to be pulled forward. So as I left the principalship and I decided to, as I shared earlier, you know, stake my claim and go out on my own and develop my own brand, I just said, you know what, I've got to find a moniker for myself, a branding for myself that will let people know who I've been since I was a little girl, preschool teacher, and, you know, on up through the years. And so when I was a principal, I read Terrence Deal's book, Leading with Soul. And so when I started to look for a Twitter handle and a branding handle, I said, oh, somebody has to have Teach with Soul, and nobody did. So I just believed that if I could develop a brand for myself that I could be known by and that people could identify with and say, oh, you know what, I want what that lady has. I want to be able to be the kind of teacher that teaches from my soul, not just from my head. And so that's how I decided to go forward. And I find, ladies, that it's pretty powerful. I'll have a lot of people tell me, oh my gosh, I just love your Twitter handle. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but that's how I really feel. So ladies, when and if we're not teaching with soul, then we're not really doing the job that we should be doing for the children and the families that we serve.
Great point, Lisa. I feel so inspired already. And obviously you are incredibly passionate about supporting and empowering new teachers. Share with us the why behind that. Maybe just go a little bit further.
Sure. My career was spent, ladies, here in Southern California, which I'm sorry I didn't say I was, but I'm from Southern California. And so if you know anything about California, you know that our state is predominantly, now, especially predominantly Latino, predominantly second language learners, you know, with not only our Latino population, but our Asian populations as well. And so what I began to discover as I started my first principalship in my mid-30s was that I really wanted to be in the places where I really felt I could be of the most help and support. I do speak Spanish. It is my first language, believe it or not. And so that's where I spent my 19-year career, is working in schools where there was high second language learning, high poverty, and a high need, right? So as I was there, ladies, I began to go in schools where I was at the lowest API score, you know, lowest test score of the time. And my superintendents that would hire me would say, Lisa, you have just the energy and the passion and the drive to pull your school up. And I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I'm a brand new principal and I've got to pull this school up from the low 400s to the 700s. And so I found that as I began to do that, ladies, and I began to work as a team with my students and my teachers and my parents, I began to need to hire new teachers that had the kind of energy that I really believed our kids needed. And so as I began to do this, though, in these, to encapsulate this in these communities, ladies, there was a huge revolving door. As you can imagine, new teachers coming in, they're met with children of poverty, children that come from families where there's gangs, there's violence, there's drug use, there's incarceration. They would bail. So that's really what began to inspire me to create a place where new teachers could come together and talk, because I'd seen the revolving door of new teachers becoming devastated, exhausted. And I said, no, I don't want new teachers to survive. I want them to thrive. Okay. So that's really the foundation for New Teacher Chat and what I do.
Well, that's wonderful. And honestly, just hearing just about how your energy was being used to pull up a school is so powerful, because I think that that's exactly what we do need in our schools. And it's so easy to get caught up in that day-to-day, the busyness, and we need to inspire one another and energize each other. So I appreciate that you've brought that out. In speaking of mentors, so I've been really fortunate to be able to be a new teacher mentor myself. I've only been able to do it one time, but I would love to hear from you. How important are mentors in the life of a new teacher? And share a little bit more about that role that they play.
I appreciate that so much. You know, when I was a new teacher, when I first came to my campus, I didn't have a mentor. And so I had to run on my own fuel. I had to run on my own drive, passion, joy, laughter, you know, fall down and pick myself up again. You know, I really love that Batman quote where his father tells him, you know, what do we do? You know, why do we fall? And it was a real pivotal point in the early Batman movie. And he says, so we can pick ourselves up again. And boy, ladies, and I do that a lot. As a child development major, which I didn't share, Heidi, but now I'm, you know, sharing, I found that I came into a group of teachers that did not have, in my day, child development background. You know, long time ago, ladies, you could get a teaching degree after you'd been doing all kinds of other stuff and just decide, well, you know, I think I'll just be a teacher for the benefits and then I can retire and whatever. But there were very few of us who went the extra mile to get the child development degree, which required, like at the time, like 8 more units or 16 more units or 12 more units. So I come all excited to my school site with those extra units, and I see the needs of the children, and I want to share and talk about it with a mentor, and there wasn't one. So I began to notice then, you know, fast forward as I became a school principal, you know, my decision was no. I am never going to have a new teacher on my campus that doesn't have somebody mentoring them and supporting them, even if it's me, even if I have to stay till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And my colleagues would say, you're crazy. You can't do that. But the power of the mentor in the lives of the new teacher, ladies, is important. And it's something that, you know, you probably know in your work, but I say it all the time. The mentor isn't there to tell the new teacher what to do. The mentor is there to come alongside the new teacher and have the new teacher be able to say, or even a pre-service teacher for us in professorship, Heidi, to say, you know, oh my gosh, I did this lesson and it didn't work out. Oh my gosh, you know, my classroom management plan isn't going right. Oh my gosh, my design of my classroom is a disaster. I need to get it better. And to be that sounding board to say, okay, well, tell me more. Let's see. Tell me what you've done. Let's talk. Let me come into your classroom. So in the absence of a mentor, you're talking in your own head, ladies, which is what I did as a young teacher, right? And nobody should have to do that. Right. And so my thought was, and my belief still is, and sometimes I'll get a little gentle pushback when they say, well, you know, I don't really think new teachers need a mentor. And I said, well, you know what? I disagree. I think you're wrong. Every new teacher needs a mentor that can come alongside for at least the first 3 to 5 years of their career. And if not 5, at least 3. And if you don't have that, and ladies, I got to give a little pitch for what I designed. I designed the New Teacher Mentoring Project, which you can go to my site to see, because what I began to find as I began to promote the idea of mentorship is that new teachers would say, Lisa, I don't like my mentor. He or she just doesn't match with me, or they don't have the skills that I need. So I developed the New Teacher Mentoring Project on my site so that any new teacher from anywhere, or even around the world, can go connect with the mentor that's there and be able to, you know, have a person who's a teacher in California connect with somebody in Kansas City, you know, a teacher that's in New York can connect with somebody in, you know, Montana, because I believe so strongly in the power of that. And in the, again, the absence of a mentor, you don't have that sounding board and you don't have that person that comes alongside. And I really believe that it's important.
I love how you said everyone needs a mentor. And it kind of goes along with the idea of everyone needs a coach. You know, we think of even the best, the people who are at the height of their game in the different sports field. Guess what? They have a coach. So, I mean, we all benefit from having a mentor, having a coach, wherever we are in our career.
Absolutely.
One thing that we've done on our campus, even to go beyond supporting our new teachers, is supporting our instructional assistants and helping them to connect with a kind of a senior instructional assistant to mentor them and be their kind of their go-to connect person to help them in their first year as a paraprofessional on campus. So it even extends, I think, beyond the classroom to our our paraprofessional staff.
Oh yes, I agree, Heidi. It's so important.
So how can we be sure to connect new teachers to the social media spaces that can support them? Because they're, like you just described, the new teacher mentoring project on your website, but also with new teacher chat. What are things that we can do to help new teachers connect?
I think it really becomes an issue of collaboration, Heidi. So if you're a principal, let's say, at a school in Montana or New Jersey or Chicago or California, it's really, and I hate to use this big $1 million word, but it's really incumbent upon you to do the work that it takes to connect your teachers. And I think part of the thing that I notice, and I really believe why, and I've had these conversations with folks that are not in social media spaces that do take care of new teachers, is that there's that gap, right? There's that gap between really great principals, really great teachers, really great coaches who just aren't in any social media space except maybe Facebook, which is great. But I really believe that the problem then becomes you have this cadre of new teachers flooding us, and more are going to come. We know this as baby boomers retire, and now is the time to take those steps to connect them. It really becomes the role of the mentor to make sure that they are informed, right? I'm giving my pitch here, that they are informed about the power of social media to support. And when I wrote my book, Shameless Self-Promotion, the idea behind it was standing in the gap, right? So it's their job to stand in the gap for the young teacher, or even the not so young teacher that's new, to connect them to the spaces that is needed. And then to do their work, to do their due diligence, to say, okay, I know there's a social media thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm going to make it my job to figure it out so that I can give that information to my new teachers. And then, Heidi, for those of us that work in, institutions of higher ed, that is an important piece as well. So when I work with my pre-service students in the math class that I teach, I share with them the social media spaces that are available and how to use those beyond just snapping the picture of yourself, shopping at Nordstrom. You need to make sure to think about connecting yourself in your Instagram account to people that are actually teaching and sharing, your Snapchat account as well, and going beyond Facebook and really thinking about Twitter and, dare I say it, Google Plus perhaps, and finding ways to learn and develop and gain resources from there. So I really think that it's a multiple approach. It takes the folks that are guiding them to be informed. It takes those of us who work in higher ed to be informed and to support. And then lastly, in the absence of all of that, our new teachers really need to be able to find places that they can latch onto, like a chat, like a Facebook group, like a Snapchat post that comes out to say, ooh, I just saw this person there and she's talking about something, or he's talking about something that I really need. So I tell my new teachers, my pre-service teachers, look, it's really important for me to do it, but I can't spoon feed you. At some point, you're going to have to do the work as well. But I would say, bottom line is, let's make sure that those of us that are in higher ed, that are in places where we're impacting the lives of new teachers, inform ourselves to be able to be supportive.
Well, there's so much that I can take away from that. There's so many things that you're saying along the lines of, I heard you say that oftentimes we suggest that new teachers have a mentor for 3 to 5 years, which is a great time period. I also heard you saying that it'd be great to give people mentors too, who have not just brand new teachers, but maybe people that have even shifted around or moved districts. In that time frame, and that how much people can learn from social media, and that it's important for our coaches and our teachers to be utilizing those tools as well.
Oh yes, it very much is. And I just really believe, and the reason why I named the book Standing in the Gap is I do believe there's a huge gap. There's a huge gap. And so how do we fill it? How do we stand in the gap for them? And really it you know, and it's kind of corny, but you know, it does take a surround program. I'm not going to say that other word, but it does take a surround program, and you know, a wraparound program. So you know, when I was a principal, and Heidi, you probably know this as well. Don't we provide a wraparound service to students? Well, why aren't we doing that for our new teachers? And so whenever I come against principals that I meet, I'm like, you know, are you doing this? Are you doing that? They're like, geez, Lisa, you know, I'm busy being a principal. And I'm like, you know what? And that's your biggest mistake. You need to be busy being of service. And the way that you need to be of service is to provide a wraparound support system for your new teachers. Otherwise, you are not doing the job that you've been entrusted to do.
That's great, because
that is so
really
convicting.
It is, and teaching is such a big job, and I think oftentimes we don't understand that until we're actually in the field and we can feel everything that's going on around us. And we also make assumptions that new teachers know all about the latest tech tools. Do you find that to be true?
You know what? I do. I have discovered the simplest social media tool, or the simplest tech tool that my pre-service teachers could use. Ladies, they don't even know what it is. Let me give you an example. So for example, you know, I love to use Google Docs in my work with my pre-service students, even though that's not necessarily what my college would love me to do. You know, I do it anyway. And the simplest process of using a Google Doc to be able to collaborate on that document and to be able to speak into the text feature, they didn't even know about that. So what I find, ladies, is I really believe there's huge assumptions that, oh, well, he's young or she's young and they know how to use, you know, everything, including this thing. And, you know, they know how to use that, but not necessarily, ladies, in the way that we want them to. They're missing out on key pieces that are going to be supportive to their work. Yes, they know how to use it for social and to snap themselves away and everything they're doing, vacationing and what have you. But they don't really have their finger on the pulse of some of the basic tools that could support them. For example, I always share Evernote, and I'll ask, does anybody know about Evernote? No hands go up. Does anybody know about, I think I shared about Pinterest. And you would say, oh, come on, Lisa. They don't. They've heard of it, but they don't really know. And then further, they don't know how to use it to further themselves in their work. So they'll say, what's Evernote? Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I've never seen it. And now I talk about Google Keep as well, because I'm like, well, if you don't like Evernote, what about Google Keep? Google Keep, what's that? So it's a misnomer when people say, oh, well, they know how to use all those tools, Lisa. They know what they're on. I'm like, no. And I always give the example of my two sons who are in their 20s. And at one point, my older son said, probably like 3 years ago, he goes, Mom, we have reached the pinnacle where you know more about social media and tech tools than your two 20-something sons. And I'm like, yay. But, you know, ladies, that was an accurate statement. And even to this day, I'll say to my older son, who has to do a lot of presentations, I'll say, well, what about this feature? Did you use that feature? It's like, oh my gosh, Mom, I'm exhausted just hearing you talk about it. So I think it's important for us to, again, not make those assumptions, but to, oh, we have a friend joining us.
Hi.
Oh, it's so cute. But to really make sure that we say things like, have you thought about this? Or have you heard about that? To make sure that they're really being able to access the tools that we know will support them.
Very true. I love hearing your insight on that, Lisa. So if you could share just one thing that you would like lead up teachers to walk away with or go out and do and make a difference, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. It would be to elevate and lift up the needs of new teachers that are around you before your own. Years ago, I started a hashtag Mentoring Monday, and sometimes I'll forget. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I missed it. It was Monday. And I know we have, I think one of our friends at our PLN has started Motivate Monday, I think. But whenever I put Mentoring Monday, it's to remind people that hey, it's not all about you. If you're an experienced teacher, you've been through those first 5 or 6 or 10 years. You know how hard it is. You know how it can feel to teach in isolation. It's your job to elevate, strengthen, and support the needs of others. And in this case, I really feel the new teacher really above yours at least once a week. Because in doing that, you are really being of service. And, you know, ladies, when I started my career, actually, let me rephrase. When I started going to college, I wanted to become a pediatrician because I wanted to be a healer. And then I wanted to become a school psychologist because I really wanted to be of service. And a principal I was working with, you know, dissuaded me from doing that and helped kind of guide me. But really, my career is founded on being of service. And I think what happens too often is we become isolated. We you know, when we talk about being in a silo, and we begin to talk about, oh, poor me, oh, it's so hard, oh, teaching is so tough, oh, you have no idea. Well, if that in fact is true, and we know it is, and you're an experienced teacher, what about that new teacher who's coming into that landscape and saying, if you think it's hard for you, multiply it by 1,000 for me. So that would be the last thing that I would say, that I would leave your community with, is think about elevating and strengthening the needs of a new teacher that's around you at least once a week, so that you can really give back and be of service and be a person that pays it forward.
Wow, you're giving me so much. I feel like my mind is kind of racing in different directions, just thinking of everything that you're sharing. And it's so inspiring to be able to think about what we could be doing in different ways and making that impact and influencing our teachers. And as we wrap up, share what is coming up for you in the near future and just how our listeners can also connect with you.
Oh, sure. Well, you can find me at lisadabs.com, so that's fairly easy. And my site is getting a little retooling. I'm not quite done yet, but I found an amazing VA who's working with me, so that's really exciting for me. I'm excited to share that I will begin to do in the new year more radio shows. I have a radio program, so if you go on my site, you'll find that there. It's with BAM Radio, and it's New Teacher Chat Radio, no surprise. I'm going to be doing and asking for those of you in our PLN to join me with topics that you really think are germane to new teachers that they could use support with. And then I'm excited to share that I'm a part of the Hack Learning team, and I'm in the process of writing my first book with the Hack Learning team, which we haven't decided exactly the title yet, but it will be around hacking new teacher empowerment. Because ladies, I really want, you know, my message is always, I want new teachers not to just survive, but thrive. And how do new teachers thrive? Well, they thrive if they are empowered. So I'm excited to share that, you know, that book will be coming out in the spring of 2017. And then lastly, I'll be presenting at a couple of conferences coming up, Q in Palm Springs, ASCD here in California in March. And then I look forward to seeing as many of my PLN as will be around at ISTE as it comes up on the west side of the country in San Antonio. So that should be a lot of fun. So thank you, ladies.
Excellent. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on Leadupteach tonight. And we definitely enjoyed hearing everything that you had to offer and just all the inspiration and the passion that you shared with us tonight for empowering new teachers. And I also want to say a thank you to our amazing audience who tuned in, and also to Laura Gilchrist, who's been leading the Twitter chat, and everybody who's joined in and followed along on Twitter.
We will look forward to sharing tonight's the link to tonight's Leadupteach episode on Twitter using the hashtag Leadupteach.
And we're excited to announce the date and time of our next Leadupteach episode, and want everyone to mark their calendar for episode 16, which will air on Thursday, December 8th at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern Time. And we look forward to welcoming Dennis Sheeran on the topic of making learning more relevant in every classroom.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you're having him. That's so exciting.
Yes, excited.
And so between now and our next episode, we encourage everyone to follow those that you connected with tonight, possibly on the Twitter chat. Definitely give a follow to Lisa Dabbs if you don't already follow her at Teaching with Soul. Use the Leadupteach hashtag to share learning and connect in the this PLN. We're signing off tonight. Good night. all lead on and lead up. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.